Hello and welcome to La Revue. We're back again after a week-long break, just 4 days away from the start of the competitive season in England and Spain. I'm here with Craig and Kieran, as usual, and I'm sure they can't wait for the start of the season either. Can you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm dying here. Pre-season's not the same at all.
Don't mind the gloomy start because we've got a lot of good things to go on today. What about you, Kieran?
Yeah, I've been missing the football, so definitely looking forward to season starting this week and got a few good matches coming up. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, so we'll start our proceedings with the Olympic final, the game for gold, Brazil versus Mexico. It was a shock for me. We were all expecting Brazil to go out and win this game, win this competition, but Mexico, dark horses for the tournament, turned the tide, got an early lead, increased it, put the game to bed with that second goal. Your thoughts on that, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed in the last podcast that Brazil really weren't playing as a team. I mean, they were scoring lots of goals and they had a lot of flair, and they were never really quite a team. The defense had a lot of problems. They never really being quite solid. Now, Mexico being the exact opposite of that, they played very well as a team. You know, all the way through from the midfield to defense to the attack. They were very solid, very composed. And I think that's what undid Brazil in the end. It was very disappointing for me to watch players like Oscar on the wing. I think that was very wrong. He should have been played more central, would have got involved a lot more in the game, and I think that was detrimental to Brazil's entire plan. That being said, players like Rafael didn't help. Had an absolute shock of a game. Should never have been allowed on the pitch. Thiago Silva had a blunder. You know, that's very unusual for a player of his caliber. And Neymar never really quite stepped up to the plate of being the next big thing. All in all, it's pretty disappointing from Brazil, but looking at Mexico and the way they played and the players that they had, I was very, very impressed. Very impressed about how they played as a team, and I thought it'd be interesting to see how they do and develop from that into 2014.
Right, so do you think some good prospects coming up from Mexico? I mean, we usually talk about players from Argentina and Brazil, players that should probably move out to Europe. Do you see some similar sort of players in Mexico?
There's a lot of talent in the Mexican team, and I think more so than that, they looked mature, a lot more mature than the Brazilian team. I mean, they had players like Mia, who really impressed me. Fabian Peralta was very, very impressive as well, scoring 2 goals. I mean, they've got players that can stick to a structure and get their whole tactical discipline, and they get given orders and they go out there and accomplish it. There's no, like you watch with the Brazil, you watch the midfield fall apart quite a lot of times. You didn't see that with Mexico. And I thought that was very, very impressive for such a young team, being Olympics and then the under-23.
All right, so Kieran, do you think the Mexicans outplayed Brazil on this occasion, or like Craig said, were the Brazilians a bit lackluster, a bit incomplete and not playing well as a team?
Yeah, I think Craig's hit the nail on the head there with saying that they weren't playing like a team. That was what I noticed all game. It wasn't really one team playing an organized game. It was, 3 or 4 guys up the front all trying to do their own thing, trying to break down the defense. And in the end, at the end of the day, for all the hype, these big names, Oscar, Neymar, they didn't really impress me that much. They failed to break them down, and that was in the end, I think, credit to the Mexican defense, who were extremely organized. They clearly came in with a plan, and they stayed really stubborn at the back. One thing I thought we haven't mentioned yet was probably Mexico's best player all tournament actually missed the final. That was Giovanni Dos Santos. So that made it even more of an impressive performance. And speaking about young players, I thought the Mexican defense as a whole was really good, but 19-year-old Diego Reyes really impressed me in particular.
Yes, Brazilian youngsters clearly have a lot to learn. We saw this in the final. And now, before we preview the season for you, the new season, we're going to talk about some of the transfers that have already been done. One of the big ones here, in my opinion, was Santi Cazorla to Arsenal from Malaga. Now, your thoughts on this one, Craig?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent signing. Excellent signing. I mean, Arsenal need to strengthen in midfield. They need to strengthen in a lot of places, I believe. And if they want to keep Robin van Persie and make him happy and show that the team's really trying for titles, then this is the perfect signing. He was absolutely brilliant for Malaga last season. Only 3 players, the top 3 players who made the most passes in the final third were Xavi, Messi, and Cazorla. So it goes to show you, playing for Malaga and and getting that sort of, those passes in the middle is just brilliant. I think he's going to add a lot to the EPL. Be interesting to see how he does there, but I think he's an absolute perfect signing for them.
Yeah, I think he's probably the transfer of the season for me. I mean, costed around £15 million, I think that's the rumour, which is about the same as Joe Allen to Liverpool. So, and if you look at some other prices that have been going around, that is just an absolute bargain. And he does bring so much quality, which is really needed by Arsenal, into that midfield. And he's also a versatile player, so he can play in a front three as well. Yeah, just a brilliant signing for me. Another one this week was Jack Rodwell, signed by Manchester City. I think that's quite a good signing. Adds a bit of depth to their midfield, which I thought they needed. They've got great players there already, Toure, De Jong, Barry, but, a couple of those players getting a bit old, and Rodwell is one for the future, and I think he's a good player, and he will get game time there. Mancini probably wants a few more players, though. Craig, what do you think City need to do in the transfer market after this?
I'm not sure. I agree it's a great signing. He's a very versatile player as well, and apparently Mancini said he's been looking at him for 2 years now, so excellent signing, but I'm not sure where they're going to go from here. They haven't been very active in the market. There's been rumours almost linked to every player, much like the other big teams, but I'm not sure where they're going to go from here. They don't really need anyone else. They've got a lot of depth everywhere now. I can see maybe going for a central defender. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say a centre-back. I mean, they played an interesting formation in the Community Shield the other day, but definitely someone who can play alongside Kompany. If Lescott isn't there, they don't have a great deal of depth there, I don't think.
Jack Rodwell can play back there, though. I've seen him do that. Maybe that's what they were thinking a little bit.
Yeah, and so can Toure, I guess, as well.
Another signing we had was Joe Allen to Liverpool. I thought that was an interesting one, considering the fact that I had heard on the rumours that they had a policy with him to not steal any players from Swansea. So I guess that was broken in between, but I think he can be a good player for them. Not exactly the calibre of player I was expecting Liverpool to buy if they really want to push for the top four and, bring back some of that glory to Liverpool. What do you think?
I think he's exactly that sort of, he's a mid-table signing, really. They spent quite a lot of money on him. He's very promising, but at this point he's not the sort of player who's going to lift them to much greater heights. And I think the same for Barini as well, really. He's a good young Italian player, but Liverpool haven't really made the move so far that are going to take them up much higher. But I mean, it is an interesting project there under Rodgers, and I'm interested to see how they go. I think they could end up playing some good football. Joe Cole maybe getting a second chance. Maaz, do you have anything more on the Liverpool situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with Agger probably hinted at leaving the club despite his desire to stay, Liverpool have decided to cash in for the Danish centre-back. Do you really think this is a wise move, given that the new Liverpool actually looks like a good project, like you said yourself, under Brendan Rodgers? Do you think this would be the right move to let Agger go at this point in time?
Absolutely not. He's an absolute brilliant defender, and if they really want to build for the future, I mean, these are not the sort of signings. I mean, they're good signings, but they're not the sort of signings you'd expect for a team trying to push for the top four, trying to really make a name for yourselves against teams that are strengthening like Chelsea have, teams like Man United, Manchester City, who we know are got very good teams and they've got the financial power behind them. Arsenal, as we said already, have got Cazorla, and they're looking to try and strengthen some more, possibly bring Sahin in. When you compare that to a team like Fiorentina, who's made a few purchases recently, that I think that have been very, very good purchases, like bringing in Borja from the relegated Villarreal. They've got Aquilani. They look like the sort of buys that Liverpool should be making, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm interested in Fiorentina myself. I think they've made some great signings just in the last week. And, like you said, I think they could have done with a few of these players at Liverpool, I guess. And cheap signings as well. Picking up on players like these from Villarreal relegated. They've got some great players over there. And I know Rossi, rumoured to be scouted by Milan and other teams like this. But Borja Valero, great player there. And Pizarro and Aquilani as well. There's some great midfielders, so very interested in that one.
Yeah, you mentioned something very interesting there, Kieran. You talked about a relegated club like Villarreal, and you sort of hinted that clubs should take advantage of the situation there and get some players out. You also mentioned Malaga earlier, the exodus, like you said. Do you think there is some more advantage people are going to take of Malaga after Cazorla and Rondon having already left?
Yeah, well, there are plenty of good players there in the team, and Isco, I know, is one player being looked at, and he's a brilliant young player. Anyone who picks him up has just got a great talent on their hands. And, there are some, I think Valencia is one team who could possibly profit from Malaga's recent issues. They're looking at signing Monreal as a left back. They could get him on the cheap. And I think Valencia could also take a look at not only Camacho and Tulalon, who are Malaga's defensive midfielders, but also Bruno of Villarreal, who hasn't moved on from Villarreal either. So, yeah, I mean, there's bargains to be had in this market, and it is a wise way to buy when there are players going for such big money.
Craig, are you aware of the situation around Fernando Llorente? He's handed in a transfer request and finally decided to leave the club after 17 years. I was listening to the club president's press conference, and he says he's disappointed to hear that Llorente will be leaving soon after spending such a long time with this club. And bearing in mind that Bilbao are a club who are never keen on letting go players, especially someone like Llorente, what do you see developing in this regard?
An interesting situation going on there at Bilbao. I mean, it seems that Llorente wants success, wants titles, wants to go to a club that's, a big club where he's got a chance of winning something. A lot of clubs are interested, and a lot of clubs would be lucky to have him. He's a great centre forward, great target man. I think it's a wise decision for the player. It's poor for the club and its fans, but it's a wise decision for the player because really, where he is at the moment and where Bilbao are at the moment, I don't really see them having much chance of winning silverware, despite their semi-good season last season. I don't really see them having much chance of winning anything in Spain, especially when you've got Madrid and Barcelona, and in Europe it's pretty much a lottery. That being said, Athletic Bilbao have got a lot of other worries as well. Might be losing Javi Martinez. There's rumours that he might be going to Bayern, or a couple other clubs are possibly interested as well. So could be big issues there for Athletic Bilbao at the moment. Some other transfer rumours going around at the moment, pretty big ones, is we have RVP to United, Sahin possibly leaving to Arsenal. Kaka has apparently agreed terms with Milan, but a fee is still yet to be hammered out between Real Madrid and AC. Modric, apparently the deal is done for 32 million euros plus bonuses. We'll see if that actually becomes official or not. And they are apparently rumoured to be Tottenham's replacement for Modric. Song apparently going to Barcelona, whether that happens or not. And Aga apparently leaving either to Man City or a couple other clubs that are interested. What do you got to say on this, Kieran?
Yeah, some interesting ones there. I think Kaká to Milan would be a good signing for Milan if they can get it at a reasonable price, and I think they could. I mean, I don't think Madrid would be too fickle over the price there, and they'll let him go at some point if they don't really see him as a needed asset. And I think he's got quality still at his age. He is still a good player, and I think the squad I look at when I look at Milan, they could do with someone like him. Alex Song to Barcelona, that's a very interesting one. I think in terms of price, it's a better deal than Javi Martinez, but I really still question whether this sort of player is needed. I presume the reasoning behind it is he doesn't have faith in the backups for Sergio Busquets, and he does want someone to come in and back him up and also offer a bit of depth in defence. But Alex Song's never really impressed me hugely as a centre-back either. So, I mean, I think they do better to sign an actual centre-back. But, at the end of the day, if we can get a reasonable price for that, that's not a horrible signing. Maaz, do you have anything more on the RVP saga?
Yeah, like I sort of had a hinge on this before. Robin van Persie might actually stay at Arsenal. That seems more and more likely because, for one, I don't really think some other club are going to really meet the demands from Arsenal or Robin van Persie. Like Man United might not really pay a very huge sum to Arsenal for him. And rightly so, because I don't really see a point of spending too much on Robin van Persie. You really don't know how he's going to do this season. And as for his concerns about where Arsenal were going, I think those have really been resolved, because you've seen some really good signings at Arsenal, like we've talked about, Podolski, Santi Cazorla, and Giroud. So, in my opinion, the way I see it, I think things are finally settling in. Arsene Wenger hasn't actually closed the door on Robin van Persie. Earlier he said he hasn't really signed a player to replace him yet, so Robin van Persie is very much part of the plan, and Arsenal would welcome him back. He hasn't left already, but would welcome his desire to stay, and so would the fans. That's what Arsene Wenger said. So in my opinion, this might just happen. It's not going to be a surprise to me.
Yeah, I don't think it makes much sense for Man United to sign him, to be honest, and Arsenal would do better to keep him. I think it would be, the only way they really have of being in contention for the title this season. And looking ahead into the fixtures, the first game we have up is Arsenal versus Sunderland at the Emirates Stadium. So if RVP stays, it should be an absolute cracker of a match. What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing how Arsenal go this year. And, I mean, if RVP stays, then I think they will be a very good team to watch. My pick for this weekend is probably Newcastle and Tottenham. I think that's going to be a great game. Newcastle really impressed me last year. And I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of new signings there at Tottenham, Vertonghen and also the Gylfi Sigurdsson. So I think that will be a good game. Other one, which I think will be probably the other fixture of the weekend, is Everton hosting Manchester United. Some great games in the past. Last year, I think probably one of the, other than the final match day, I think probably the game of the season where Everton and United, I think it was a 4-4 draw. They proved to be United's bogey team in the past, and I think that could be a good one. Maaz, what do you think?
Okay, well, talking about the English Premier League, my pick really for the season would be Chelsea. I'm not going to talk about the opening fixtures here, I'm just talking as a whole. Chelsea have really strengthened their squad, taking it from the Champions League win last season. Now, I just have a hint that Chelsea might just walk away with the title at the end. Just something else I would like to add is, do watch out for Liverpool player Raheem Sterling. He does really look like a good prospect. Liverpool, who have already started their competitive fixtures in the Europa League, played Leverkusen at Anfield, and Raheem Sterling got a very good goal. Do watch it if you haven't already, inside the 3rd minute of that game. That being said, I think this season is going to be sort of changed for Liverpool as well.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying about Chelsea being favourites for the title, I still feel that after watching the Community Shield match between Manchester City and Chelsea, still get the feeling that Chelsea have a long way to go to really get used to this new system. It seems we've discussed this in the past, how Chelsea are not really the physical team they once were. They're not really the hard-hitting defensive team they once were. They've gone to more of a lightweight system, attack on the counter, pacey players, lightweight players. And like we saw with Real Madrid a few years back, it took them a long time to try and settle into this type of system and get used to it. And I think it's going to be a steep learning curve for Chelsea at the moment, and might take them a while to get used to the system. But once they do, I feel they'll be a good team. But I still think it's going to be a long while coming. It's going to be a steep learning curve, and people have to be patient with this team. They're not going to expect success straight away. And I think we've seen that with their preseason. Their preseason's been pretty poor, and we saw that against Manchester City. They played a pretty strong lineup, whereas Man City had 3 or 4 starters, I think, out of the team, and they still weren't able to win. So it'd be interesting to watch. Back to the games in the first round of the EPL, I think another interesting game to watch would be West Brom Albion and Liverpool. That's at the Hawthorns, and we get to see Lukaku, who just left Chelsea on loan, see what he's all about, see him play week in, week out, which is really good, I think, for his development.
Yeah, Lukaku is a player that I'll be really looking forward to, because he reminds me a lot of Drogba, of course. And, I mean, he's just the sort of player that I think can eat the EPL right up. Just on Chelsea again, I think I'd still tip City this year. I think, just like Craig was saying, still in the Community Shield, I think Chelsea's still got a bit to learn. And City looking good as normal. They've got that the chemistry from last year, and United also in pre-season looks good. And Ferguson, as always, has his team very organised. And yeah, I still think it'll be mainly fought out in Manchester, and will be very interesting to see how Chelsea go.
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure as well. We have to defend the Champions League title.
Yeah, but I still think, as Kieran was saying, I much agree with him. I think Man City look the best team at the moment, but I'll never ever count out Sir Alex Ferguson. I think a lot depends on Rooney's form, whether he can keep it, whether he can show that hunger that it really has throughout the entire season, stay fit. But they'll be right up there. And I still think, much like Kieran, that the top two, the title will be fought out in Manchester between City and United, and it's just a matter of who will win it.
Yeah, so I'm moving on to La Liga now, which also kicks off this weekend. I think that's a good thing. Normally kicks off a few weeks later than the EPL, but we are starting this weekend. The first game is Malaga and Celta Vigo, which will be an interesting one to just see what the sort of situation there in Malaga is. I know the players could be in an interesting headspace. I'm not sure. A lot of them still probably thinking about leaving. Will be very interesting. Celta Vigo, newly promoted team. And, I mean, it'll be a kick-off to a really interesting season this year. I think it'll be all about Tito Villanova at Barcelona, how he can get this team back on the track of Real Madrid. I'm not sure whether we'll see much different there from Barcelona, but it will be very interesting. It promises a season of retribution there for Barca. They take on Sociedad, but the big game this weekend is definitely Madrid hosting Valencia, who finished third last year. I've been very impressed with Valencia's moves in the transfer market this year. They've signed players like Guardado. They've also got Canales permanently from Real Madrid, Pereira from Portugal there, good right back who played at the Euros. I'm sure you guys are definitely looking forward to this game, seeing how Madrid goes. Craig, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because Gago and Canales have been bought from us this summer transfer window, but I think that people have got to realise as well, Real Madrid at the moment have 15 players away due to internationals and can't really train until Thursday, Friday, if we're realistic with those players. So that might have a huge effect on the game and how it's played, despite the fact that it's at home, it's at the Santiago Bernabeu. Valencia should be fresh and ready to go. So I think that's going to weigh up heavily. If Real Madrid do win and play well, it won't be a big win. I'd say maybe 1 or 2 goal win. But Valencia definitely have a big opportunity here to either get a draw or get a win from Real Madrid, or bigger than they would have normally.
Right, so we are talking about La Liga now, and this might sound like a hopeless question, but the last time some other team apart from Real Madrid and Barcelona won this league was back in 2003 and 4, that season. Valencia actually took the crown away. Do you in any way see this happening?
No. I mean, I'm pretty sure Kieran's going to say the exact same thing. There's no way, any other team apart from Real Madrid or Barcelona are going to win the title.
Yeah, it's not really that promising again. I think we're all very excited about seeing how Malaga did with that new money, and, that situation sort of ended pretty badly in the end. Valencia, they've done some good things, but they still don't really have the sort of squad that can challenge the two big guns. Atletico Madrid, I think, the team
Yeah, I agree
to
with
watch after last year. But, I mean, I think it's going to be 1-2, the two big teams, and then Valencia and Atletico Madrid probably 3 and 4. But, I mean, it is a competitive league nonetheless if you focus outside of those top two, because there are plenty of good teams to watch. I find that even the bottom teams in Spain play great football, and that battle from sort of third to around 8th is always hotly contested. So always plenty of good football to watch.
Yeah, I'll bring out a statement here from Jose Mourinho in a recent interview when they talked about this very topic. They said, there's no competition in La Liga. Barcelona and Real Madrid are always going to win because of money situation, because of this, because of that. And he turned around and said, well, you bring any team, and I agree with this, you bring any team in the world of football to La Liga and they'll still finish third. And I very much agree with that. I mean, there's no other team in the world that over 38 games can get ahead of Real Madrid or Barcelona. And it might sound, really obnoxious of me to say that, but I don't see how Man City and Man United, especially the way they performed in Europe last season, are on any calibre to that of Real Madrid. I don't see Bayern beating out Barcelona, Real Madrid over 38 games, and I certainly don't see Chelsea doing it. Atletico Madrid and Athletic Bilbao were the two teams that fought out in the Europa final last year to show the quality of the that they have. I think Bilbao beat out Man United. Atletico Madrid had the top scorer in Falcao. These are really quality teams. These are not garbage teams we're talking about here that we're beating out. These are teams that are reaching Europa final consistently, and they're still far and well away of ever touching Real Madrid and Barcelona in La Liga. So it's not in terms of money or anything like that. It's just in terms that these two teams, Real Madrid and Barcelona, are so good right now that any team in the world would not touch them. What do you think?
Yeah,
Aaron?
and another one I thought was Chelsea last year. They won the Champions League. A lot of criticism about how lucky they were, but along the way, they beat Valencia. But in both of those games, if you watch them, Valencia completely outplayed them, in my opinion. So, I mean, if that's a measure of how good the English league is and how good the Spanish league is, I mean, you can't really be knocking La Liga too much based on that.
I'd agree with both of you there. It's not down to the inferiority of the other clubs. It's actually down to the superiority of the duopoly there. And Craig talked about the Europa League in Spain over there. I think this is the second time in the last 5 or 10 years maybe that two Spanish teams have actually made it to the final of the Europa League, or the UEFA Cup as it was previously called.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. I mean, I see a lot of it on the internet and on podcasts and different shows and stuff talking about how it's unfair, the TV rights deal, and we all know what's going on there. But people don't understand how good these other teams are in La Liga. They're not garbage teams. They're not teams like in the EPL where you can just mow over some of the teams. Some of these teams are actually really good. Teams like Espanyol, who have given Barcelona a run for their money, in years gone past. Teams like Deportivo La Corona, who've just been newly promoted, have given Real Madrid hell at home. These are teams with real quality, and I think people have got to really look at teams like Atletico Madrid and Athletic Bilbao and Valencia, and instead of look at the table and look at them 30 points behind, realize the quality they've got within the team. Look at them face other teams like Chelsea, like Man United in the Europa and the Europe, and really see that it's not just down to these clubs being poor, but it's just down to Real Madrid and Barcelona over 38 games. You're very rarely going to get the better of them. In Europe, it's a bit of a lottery. You've got penalties, you got away goals. Anything can happen really in a knockout system. But over 38 games, I don't see anyone beating these two teams.
Since we're already talking about the EPL versus La Liga, rumour here, that's unconfirmed of course, it's related to Luka Modric, who's an EPL player as we speak, but he might soon be playing in La Liga as the season starts. Some sources have actually reported that the transfer has been finalised for 32 million and Luka Modric will soon be a Real Madrid player. We're going to see more on this in the next few hours. So we're all set for the start of the new season, and I think this is going to be it about La Liga. Craig, you were talking of the German Cup before we started this podcast.
Yeah, it was a good game. Bayern ended up winning 2-1, I believe, and I think didn't really show us anything coming into the new season. I still think there was no definite one way or another. It wasn't like the Chelsea versus Man City where you sort of saw the difference in quality, and you could really tell that Chelsea had a little bit of work to really do despite the red card and everything. It was a bit of luck on Bayern's part, and I still think the season coming through that Borussia Dortmund should still be one of the favourites for the title. I don't think Bayern's going to run away with it despite them missing the goer. They've got Roz Rusin, so I don't think they're going to be missing a beat at all. What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, well, Germany's always a good league to follow, and yeah, I mean, it's going to be those two teams again. Yeah, I mean, I think I saw out of Bayern Munich, they were saying it was a bit of a mental victory there heading into the season, but I mean, this is just a preseason game after all, and yeah, obviously a very close game, and I think again it'll be probably a very close season between those two.
While we're on the topic of Super Cups, we also had Juventus v Napoli. Lots of drama, lots of controversy all over the internet. The 3 red cards for Napoli. Juventus ended up winning 4-2 because of those red cards, basically. And even when they were 3 men down, Napoli seemed to be dominating in some parts of the game. I talked to a lot of Juventus fans, I talked to a lot of Serie A fans, and who watched the game, a lot of neutrals as well. And for me personally, in the neutrals, it left that sick taste in your mouth. When all this sort of controversy happens, especially when you've got Serie A teams, and it all links back to, you know, the rumours that are going on at the moment, you know, with Conte and everything else, and it really, a lot of those red cards I don't think personally were anything, and it was just very disappointing. Napoli would have won that if the ref had been at least a little bit sensible. What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, it's interesting just on Juventus. Last year they weren't in the Champions League. There's been a lot talked about whether they'll be able to back it up in both competitions this year. Craig, what do you think about Juventus's chances this year in Serie A?
I think they still have the strongest team in Serie A. I think they're still going to win it, especially with Milan the way they are at the moment. They look a shambles of team. They couldn't do it with Ibra and Diego Silva. I don't think they're going to do it without them. Inter don't look like much of a team at all at the moment. Napoli still look pretty good. I still really like Fiorentina. I think they're going to, you know, be in the top 4 this season. But on terms of Europe, I think Juventus, if they want to really make an impact, they still need a big-name striker. They need to sign a huge striker that can get them those big goals in Europe. If that doesn't come, then I really don't see them pushing or progressing far in Europe. But they should still win Serie A.
So on that note, we'll look to say goodbye for this week, but before we do so, I'll talk a bit about the Coca-Cola Championship side, Wolverhampton, due to a request from one of our listeners. Well, Robert, things don't look too good for Wolverhampton, who only just managed to win on penalties against League 2 side Aldershot Town. They've got to do better if they want to return to the Premier League, especially when clubs in the Championship have been galvanising, but competition is tough. So the Wolves start their season on 18th August against Leeds. It's an away game, and the positive result should set the right tune for Solbakken, especially with Stephen Fletcher probably on his way out. You might see some change in that regard, maybe, because Sunderland have made an improved bid for Stephen Fletcher, and that bid has been turned down. You never know. The striker who scored more than 10 goals for Wolverhampton last season might just stay. So this is all you'll hear from us for this week. We'll be back next week with a lot more on this new season that is about to start in 4 days. So join us again next week. Goodbye for now.